Hello everyone, this is Just a Dad. Today I'm going to show you how to descale or clean the inside of your coffee maker with white vinegar. This is the Cuisinart T-Series touchscreen, model number DCC-T20, their 14 cup T-Series. So if you look on the screen here, you won't see it, but there is a clean function right there. And I'm going to show you how to use, if that light comes on, it's time to descale your coffee maker. But you may want to start, you may not necessarily want to wait for that light to come on. You should be descaling your coffee maker every 3 to 6 months, depending on how hard your water is. If it's really hard, you want to descale it more often. If your coffee is not tasting as hot as it used to be, if your coffee's not tasting good, and if your coffee maker's taken a long time to brew coffee, these are all signs that it's time to descale your coffee maker. I'll be using distilled white vinegar. You can use normal white vinegar. This is from Walmart for $1.50. So I'm going to explain why we descale and kind of where the descaling agent goes. Here I've got an older Cuisinart coffee maker. Now I've opened up several coffee makers and they're all relatively the same. So you got your water reservoir in the back. When you lift the lid, you pour your water. The water goes here, goes through this carbon filter, and it goes down. The heating element is in the bottom of your coffee maker. So the water comes from the water tank, it gets heated, and then it gets shot up this tube to the brew head. It goes up and in over your coffee grounds. So the area we're descaling is this right here. Now I've cut this open. This is the heating element. Now this is kind of an aluminum heating element, and you can see this has hard water deposits in there. It was descaled a little bit, but it could have been descaled a little bit more often. So if these hard water deposits build up inside that tube, it'll constrict the flow of coffee, it affects the taste of the coffee, and it affects how hot your coffee is. So it's a good idea to keep up on the descaling, because the more it builds up, the harder it is to finally descale it. And what's nice about the Cuisinarts is they have an automatic cleaning mode, which runs the vinegar through the heating element, but then it pauses. And that pausing lets that heating element soak. And then it starts again. It starts brewing, then pauses. Brews, then pauses. That's a really nice function. And then when we're all done, we're going to rinse out the heating element with some fresh water rinses. And I will be following the instruction booklet that came with it on how to descale it. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the filters. We don't need our permanent filter, and we don't need a paper filter, but we do have to make sure this filter basket is installed. So just put the filter basket in, nothing in. We're going to remove the carbon filter. Take your carbon filter out. You're going to leave it out for the duration of this. And then our coffee carafe. Make sure it's empty. We're going to set it here, and we're going to use it to put our vinegar in. So they want a 2 to 3 ratio, one third vinegar, 2/3 water. So you're not going to pour straight vinegar into your coffee maker. So I'm going to fill this up to the 5 mark. It'll be a little bit stronger than it needs to be, but that's just a good mark to fill it up to. So this is the pure vinegar, and it does stink a little bit. And when it's brewing through your coffee maker, it stinks a little bit. Okay, so I've got pure vinegar up to the 5 mark. Now I'm going to fill it up with water from my tap, or filtered water if you use, right up to the 14 mark. Okay, so I've got it filled with my vinegar and water. It's all mixed together now. So I'm going to pour this mixture into the back where it goes. Remember to move your carbon filter, and you're just going to pour it back here in the water reservoir. Okay, make sure you put your carafe in. It has to have the lid on it. And then we can see we're not quite up to the 14 mark. I could add a little bit more water if I wanted to. I'm going to close the lid. Okay, so I've got to wake the screen. I'm going to press that button to wake the screen. I'm going to hold this area right here. There's a button there, actually. Okay, it's a little tricky to find the button. I got to press and hold right there. Well, I was afraid of this. Unfortunately, you cannot descale it. Well, you can, but not you can't use the automatic clean mode until the clean light comes on. That's unfortunate. Normally, you can use the clean function of a coffee maker even if the light's not on, but this button here is not active. There's a button here that says clean. It's not lit, which tells me, okay, it's not needing cleaned. But I guess you got to wait until that light shows up and then you got to do your descale. I like to do my descales before my clean light comes on. But I'm pressing and holding this, nothing's happening. And see, this is a really sensitive touchscreen. So when I do press something, you know, it works. Just you can't descale it until the clean light comes on. That's unfortunate. I would have liked to have seen that work. But I will go through the process. So even if you want to, so now say you want to descale it before your clean light's on, just do a brew. You can stop it halfway through. So you can start the brew and it's just going to brew that vinegar through. And then when it gets to about the 7 or 8 cup mark, just turn it off, let it soak, okay, for about 30 minutes to an hour, wake it back up, and then just finish the brew again. That's a way to keep up on the descaling. And then when it's all done, you're going to do fresh water rinses, which I'll show you. But, so say your clean light is on, you're going to press and hold that clean button for 3 seconds, and it's going to go into a cleaning mode. And what you'll see when that cleaning mode is, it's going to run the vinegar and water through and stop. Run it for a little, it'll run about a cup and stop. Run about 2 cups and stop. That's that soaking action to get your heating element to soak. And that's going to take about 35 to 40 minutes. It's going to beep at you when it's done and it turns off. So you're able to do some other stuff with that automatic cleaning mode and come back to it when it beeps at you. And then these fresh water rinses that I'm going to do are going to be the same. But I'm going to go ahead and do a manual. So I'm just going to brew this vinegar and water through it. I just hit the brew button. Well, I just hit the brew button. So it's like I'm brewing a pot of coffee right now. Okay, so it's brewed about half of the water and vinegar through. I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to shut it off manually. Again, when you're in the clean mode, you don't have to do this. I'm going to let this sit now, even though it's still got some more of the water and vinegar to brew through it. I'm going to let it sit. Even in the coffee maker, I'll let it sit, the coffee pot, for about 30 minutes to an hour. Okay, so I let mine sit an hour. I'm going to go ahead and start the brew process. Again, if you don't have an hour, you can do 15 minutes. It's a good idea to let it soak a little bit. But if you really don't have time, you could just run this all the way through in one brew, which would be fine. But we're still going to have to do the fresh water rinses. Even when you use the clean button, you have to do the fresh water rinses. So now it's going to take about another 7 minutes to brew the rest of that water and vinegar. Okay, so it finished brewing it. I turned the coffee maker off because it will leave the warming plate on when you're doing it this way. When you do the clean mode, it turns the coffee maker off and the warming plate doesn't stay on. So I turned the warming plate off. Now this is the water and vinegar. Be careful, that's really hot. I'm gonna dump that down the sink. I'm gonna rinse this out really good, and I'm gonna rinse my filter basket out with soap and water really good, and then I'm gonna reinstall it. Okay, so I've got my carafe all nice and clean. This is nice and clean and reinstalled. I filled this with fresh water up to the 14 cup mark. I'm going to close the lid. Now I'm just going to do a normal brew. I'm just going to let it brew all the way through. And then I'm going to do this 2 to 3 pots of fresh water to get all of that vinegar taste and smell it. The manual says to do just 1 fresh water rinse. I like to do at least 2, and sometimes I do 3. So give yourself start to finish. You're going to need almost an hour and 10 minutes to do this from start to finish, depending on how long you let it soak. Even if you use the clean mode, you'll definitely need about an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes. I hope this video helps. If you got any questions, leave them in the comments down below. I check my comments on a daily basis, and I'll try to help you out as much as I can. Thanks everybody for watching, and if you could, please like and subscribe.